2018, we received a call from a client about some equipment that had a fault in it. We sent 2 of our technicians out to the job site to examine the fault and determine what had happened. What they found was the equipment had an electrical failure of the insulation, and the power had been turned off by the utility company so we could get in and work on the equipment. So all the lockout tagout was done, all the job safety evaluation was done, guys prepared to do the work, and they executed the work that day. That morning, the young man with the utility company left his wife and 2 children, and he came to work. And he isolated the circuit so that we could work on it. Later that evening, after we completed our work, the young man came back in order to turn the power back on to our client's facility. One of our technicians heard a loud sound, and when he turned, he had seen where a blast had occurred out of the transformer feeding the facility. The young man with the utility company was on the ground. His tools, his meter, parts of his clothes were scattered about the transformer. He went over, our technician did, to render aid. The young man was coherent, and our technician asked him what he could do to help, and he said, "Could you call my wife on my cell phone so I can talk to her?" So our technician dialed the number on the phone and held the phone because the young man's hands were burned so badly with his face that he couldn't hold the phone himself while he talked to his wife. The ambulance arrived and the young man was carried away. In the hospital, his burns were so bad that really all they could do was put him in a drug-induced coma and treat him the best they could, and they had determined through the process of it they'd probably have to amputate both of his arms. About a week later, we got word that the young man had died of pneumonia. So he got up one morning and he went to work like he did mornings before for years. Young man was in his mid-30s, 2 small children. And during the course of doing a job that he had done day in and day out, something happened that afternoon and he lost his life. And his wife and 2 children did not see him again the way they saw him that morning when he left. This is one incident that's happened recently where we were present and our technicians were there as this occurred. I'm not going to analyze all the things that went wrong with it, but I will tell you, just based on a cursory look at it, everything went wrong. When we deal with safety, especially electrical safety, we lay layers of mitigation in place so that as long as at least one layer of the mitigation is followed, catastrophe is avoided. In nearly every catastrophe that causes the loss of life, it doesn't require the failure of one level of mitigation. It requires an entire breakdown of the whole system of mitigation. In nearly every case, that mitigation breakdown is due to human error. Human error is completely avoidable. The problem is we have to start paying closer attention to the human error itself. Another situation happened on a job that I had technicians on and that I was personally on about 10 years back up in the northern part of the U.S. Again, a utility company, again, a young man with a wife and small children, went to work in the morning and never went home. One of my technicians was having to give him mouth to mouth after he came in contact with a high voltage line that was energized. And his life flight landed in the driveway after they went out and they turned off the helicopter. And that always indicates one thing, and that is the fact that the person that they've come to get is no longer with us. Gave him mouth to mouth, he didn't survive. He never came conscious and he died. Again, the task he was performing, he had performed earlier in the morning to perfection. There was about 6 layers of mitigation that were put in place to keep the young man safe. In the end that afternoon, because he was in a hurry to finish the job, none of those mitigation factors were used. So again, a total breakdown of every possible protection we put in place caused the catastrophe and the death. We in our industry must pay closer attention to human performance and human error. What we do at home affects what we do at work. The old adage, don't take your work home with you, is baloney. It's not true. It's a false statement. Everyone takes their work home with them. Everyone takes home to work. One impacts the other, and the other impacts the one. No matter what you do, how you feel about things affects your ability to do your job. And we have to admit that and pay attention to that, or we can put all the safety rules and regulations in place and we will not save people's lives. Think on that as we go forth.